Welcome to another episode of Game Theory, the #1 MMA DFS prep show in all of the land.
Mister, who is that?
I'm your host, M.O.N.K, aka the Monkmatician.
With
And in this very episode, we are going back to London. UFC London, headlined by Tom Aspinall against Marcin Tybura. We've got Molly McCann in the co-main event, Andre Muniz, Paul Craig, Nathaniel Wood, Jai Herbert, of course, Lerone Murphy, Davey Grant, the debut of the Sluggernaut, Johnny Parsons. We've got Mahmoud Muradov and Barberena. I'm just listing fights at this point. We've got 15 fights to go over, so I will not waste any more time. Let's get right into the fights.
Showtime. We're gonna go nuts in there.
First fight of the night, we've got a men's flyweight scrap between Jafel Filho and Daniel Barez. Jafel Filho, 8,300 this week. He lost his first fight against Muhammad Mokaev. He almost beat Mokaev in that fight. If you remember, he had him in a leg lock that required Mokaev to get surgery after. In fact, I don't think legs are supposed to bend like that. Either way, stats don't really speak for how good he looked in that one. He got outpaced overall, basically 3-1. Inside the distance, more than 4-1. Very low ceiling so far, just the average for the division. And he did give up 99 points in his loss there. 50% takedown defense to Muhammad Mokaev. Controlled only 9% of the grappling time. What do you expect? Again, Muhammad Mokaev. His last 5 strength of schedule, not great, under 65, and he didn't throw that many strikes. It looks like 9 overall. Yeah, that's right. I have changed one of the stats to head, body, and leg percentage just to try to get a feel of, if these guys are head hunters or not, basically. Last thing I'll say, if you look at the very top and you see the orange lettering, those are the stats we're looking at. So we have their pro record, UFC record, last 5, and exact. So in this case, exact is whatever the round and the weight class is. So in this case, 3-round flyweight fight. So whatever's highlighted orange, that's what we are looking at here.
orange, 4-inch door hinge.
Let's move on to Daniel Barez. He does have one UFC fight, it looks like. Loss against Carlos Hernandez, 3-round decision. Looked decent as far as the stats go. At distance, he got outpaced by almost a full point, but inside the distance, better than 2-1 against his opponent Hernandez that week. Allowed only 74 points in that loss, controlled 31% of the grappling time, 100% takedown defense on 8 attempts, but his strength of schedule is abysmal, 53.5. I didn't say it before, but you want to see this about 70. Anything better is pretty good. Anything in the 60s is not great, and we're at 53.5 right here. So in Daniel's fight, he did land 52 significant strikes, only 48% to the head, 33% to the body, and 19% to the legs. So he is spreading the strikes around like you want to see here. I don't really know who I'm going to pick. Filho, Barez. It's kind of a show me fight. Neither guy has won, so I want to see how they're going to score in a win. Filho looked super tough against, somebody who I think is a pretty tough guy in Mokaev. Barez looked decent against Hernandez. In fact, these stats tell the tale. If you just go on stats and take the judges out of it, Barez would have won that fight. So this one could be pretty close. Maybe I'm thinking it goes to decision here. Bunch of Daniel Barez's fights have ended via decision. 6 out of 21, rather, have ended via decision. I think this one goes to decision. I'm probably going to pick Filho. I wouldn't be surprised if Barez wins, but I think the winner in a decision probably scores 70 to 80 points. So I might look to fade this one, although that might be a terrible mistake, as either of these guys could get finished. So the pick, I guess, is Filho, but I'm really interested to see how these guys perform.
Little bodies.
Fight number 2 of the evening, we've got Bruna Brazil taking on UFC debutante Shauna Bannon. Shauna Bannon, obviously no stats, no Dana White Contender Series fights. Her last 5 strength of schedule, and that's her entire professional career. 5-0 is her current record. 54.68, so awful last 5 strength of schedule. Her ceiling and floor is just the average for the division, and she is $7,600 this week. She's giving up an inch of height, but has a 4-inch reach advantage over Bruna Brazil, who is $8,600 this week. Took an L to Denise Gomes in her UFC debut, where Denise put up like 131, almost 132 points.
Out of the fucking blue.
outscored Brazil 1.81 per minute to 8 points overall. I mean, there are no good stats here for Bruna Brazil. I mean, 0% takedown defense. Her last 5 strength of schedule is 10 points better than Bannon, but still leaves a lot to be desired at 64.3. Head, body, leg percentage, pretty diverse striking for Brazil in her first fight. That fight did last almost 8 minutes, so not the greatest sample size, but, you know, better than nothing. Like I said, her stats look ridiculous. I'm going to go with Brazil here. Lots more professional experience, 12 pro fights over just 5 for Bannon. And she's been hit by Denise Gomes, who, as we now know, hits like a freaking truck in the strawweight division. So give me Bruna Brazil for a rebound here. A little first UFC win action. Bannon, I guess I'll have a little bit at 76, but I think it's a bit overpriced. And hopefully we're getting some value on Brazil since she took her debut loss. 8,600 might be a decent price to pay this week. So I will be focusing on Brazil. Might have a little bit of Bannon in GPPs, but I think Bruna can get it done this week. I hope anyways. Third fight of the night, we've got Mahmoud Muradov at 9,500, second highest salaried fighter on the entire card, taking on Bryan Barberena way down at 6,700. That salary, as you know, does not have the best win rate. Let's start with Muradov here. 3-2 in the UFC, and those are the stats that you are seeing. 2-inch height advantage, 3-inch reach advantage over Barberena. He's looking good overall at distance. He's outscoring his opponents rather by just under 1 point per minute. Inside the distance, he's giving up a point a minute there. Only 75.8 points per win over 3 UFC wins, and those wins were against Andrew Sanchez, where he scored 77. Trevor Smith, he scored 96, and Alicio Di Chirico, 53 points overall. So not the most prolific scorer by any means is Muradov. In fact, one of the lower ceilings on the card, a decent floor at 41.5, but not a good ceiling at just 93.5. No wins, like I just said, over 100 points, even though he is averaging 40 bonus points per win. A decent takedown defense at 76%, controls just 44% of the grappling time he's involved in, which is only 21% overall. Has the first decent strength of schedule that we have seen so far on the card, over 70.5 here. And as you would expect, the money team guy has a diverse striking array here. 65% to the head, 28% to the body, and 7% to the legs. So not exactly what I would call headhunting by any means. I think anything over about 70, 75, you kind of start to get into that category. Definitely more than that for sure. But I think we're sitting okay at 65% overall. Bryan Barberena here. This is going to be a slugfest, man, especially for Barberena. He looked decent against Robbie Lawler, and he's fought twice since then, got annihilated by RDA, and subbed in the first round by Gunnar Nelson, of all people. So
It does hurt, actually.
it's going to be hard to back Barberena this week, even though I do like the guy. Inside the distance, he's getting outpaced by well over 2 points per minute. At distance, looking all right, outpacing his opponents by about 0.8 points a minute, but I don't know if he's going to be able to do that against Mahmoud Muradov here. Has a decent ceiling at 116 and a very high floor of 59, so maybe dart throw potential for Bryan Barberena in this fight at such a low salary. Average bonus points per win, 53.89. Just a 54% takedown defense, but I don't think we're really going to have to worry about that too much against Mahmoud Muradov. Controls just 23% of the grappling time. Strength of schedule is almost where we want it, but not quite, at just under 69. Head strike percent, 70, so we're getting a little bit into that headhunter range. As you can see, just 14% to the body and 16 to the legs. So the stats are much better for Muradov. I don't expect too much of a ground game here. I'm expecting more of a kind of a slugfest, especially in the first round, especially from the Barberena side. And we'll see if Muradov has the skills to counter what is sure to be a few sloppy strikes from Barberena. I'm sure Muradov does. We'll just see if he can employ that strategy. So Muradov at 9,500, but that low DraftKings points per win, guys, at just 75.8 is really making me hesitant here against Barberena, who's only been KO'd twice in his entire pro career. So I'm leaning Muradov. I will have some of him just because the $9,500 salary is a good salary to target. Makes the optimal lineup about 45% of the time. Something like that, even though it's so high, which is why I appreciate it. So give me some Muradov here. I will definitely have some Barberena as well at 6,700. Women's bantamweight fight. Here we've got Ketlen Vieira at Pani Kianzad, and I'll try to speed this up, guys. I've been going on too long. We got 15 fights here. 9,100 for Ketlen Vieira. She is 7-3 in the UFC, but just 5-2 in 3-round women's bantamweight fights, which are the stats you are seeing here. Some okay numbers at distance. She's getting outpaced by a half a point per minute. Inside the distance is where she kind of has been shining, 2-1 over her opponent. Her DraftKings points per win, though, very low. At 5 UFC wins, just 81.27 points a win. A very low ceiling of 86, which means she is consistently scoring low. If she had any kind of high scores, that number would be much higher, closer to like Brian Barberena, you know what I mean?
Right?
But she is pretty consistently low scoring. No wins over 100 out of 5 attempts. Like I mentioned, 94% takedown defense in the weight class, allowing just 1 takedown out of 16 attempts. Controls 78.6% of the grappling time. Strength of schedule is not great, and she is a bit of a headhunter here. 82% of all significant strikes landed are to the head from Ketlen Vieira, just 9 to the body and to the legs.
I don't know how to work the body.
Meanwhile, Kianzad 7,100 this week. Not any kind of good stats at all. That was a terrible sentence, almost as bad as her stats. She's basically even with her opponent as far as overall pacing. At distance, she's got it by about 0.4 points a minute. Inside the distance, not so much. And she she scores somehow even less points on average than Ketlen Vieira at just 76.54. When she loses, she's allowing only 74.43, so got to be one of the lowest totals on the entire card. Kianzad fights, no points at all as far as DraftKings goes. And again, a very consistently low score since her ceiling is just 80.45 points. A decent floor at 42, but that ceiling, the floor is good for cash, but the ceiling here leaves a lot to be desired. Neither woman, 10 UFC wins at the weight class, 3-round women's bantamweight fights. Neither woman has put up over 100 points. Both have 0% as far as wins over 100. 74% takedown defense for Kianzad here. Controls just 41% of all grappling time. A strength of schedule that's almost 2 points worse than Ketlen Vieira, but a bit more diverse of a striker. But still, pretty high percentage as far as head strikes landed at 72. So I like Ketlen Vieira here. I'm sure there is definitely a good reason to play a bit of Kianzad as well. But neither woman scores well at all. I'd be shocked, A, if this finished, and B, if this scored more than like 85 points. So give me Ketlen Vieira for the win. I will be looking to most likely fade this one this week. But hey, what do I know? I told you guys last week I was playing 0% of Basel Hafez, and this dude made the optimal lineup against Jack Della Maddalena in a loss. So what do I know? Apparently not much.
Oh my God, he admitted it.
But I'm picking Vieira, and I'm going to be fading this one. Fight number 5, welterweight scrap, Danny Roberts taking on the debut, shout out Lou Betya, of Johnny by God Parsons here. Johnny Parsons, no UFC fights, obviously. I just said it was his debut, but he does have a Dana White Contender Series fight in which he lost, I do believe. No, sorry. He beat Solomon Renfro via split decision. His stats are terrible, though. Scored only 1.5 points a minute, allowed almost 4. Got 11.5 points scored on him inside the distance per minute, while he scored just 0.26. Scored only 52 points in that win over whoever I just said, Solomon Renfro, if you put scoring to Dana White Contender Series fights. 50% takedown defense, controlled less than 3% of all grappling time, one of the most poor strength of schedules on the entire card, 57, but a very diverse striking here. Man, if I could just get that sentence right. Sorry, guys, it's a new stat. I will nail it. How about some very diverse striking for Johnny Parsons? There we go. 57% to the head, 26 to the body, and 17 to the legs. His nickname is the Sluggernaut. Check out the Unnamed Nickname Show every Thursday, 9 p.m. Central on the Monk channel. I wonder what I'm going to be grading the Sluggernaut. I wonder if he's going to be towards the top as far as nicknames go, but we do give out a 4-fighter parlay on that show, so come check it out. Danny Roberts, Hot Chocolate, another great nickname here. 7-6 in the UFC, 7-6 in 3-round welterweight fights. Overall, he's getting outpaced basically by 1.5 points per minute. At distance, it's bad. Inside the distance, it's bad. Average DraftKings points per win over 7 wins is just 81.5. Now, he does have a random decent score thrown in there, 105 against Imadev. That's why his ceiling is triple digits.
Triples makes it safe. Now, triples is best. Yeah, that's good.
Stop.
But average just 81.5 points, 58% takedown defense, 72.9 strength. The schedule is very good. And another this can't be right. Yeah, that is right. Their head, body, and leg percentage is rounded up or down is the exact same. So very interesting stat there.
Okay!
Roberts controls a massive amount of grappling time compared to Johnny Parsons, but still under 37%, and scores 58 bonus points per win. So some decent numbers there for Roberts, but also some awful numbers when it comes to takedown defense and average score. So I'm rooting for the Sluggernaut, for my guy Lou Betya. I know he's rooting for Johnny Parsons. I want to see Johnny Parsons come in here and get a win after some scary medical stuff regarding his brain for sure. So I'm glad that was taken care of. Excited to see him in here, and he is the favorite at 8,200. So I'm going to be playing probably a bunch of this fight because I do not see it going the distance. I do favor Parsons just for fun overall, and I really like this guy's fighting style. So give me Parsons, but I will have some of Roberts as well in case Parsons just does too much crazy shit and gets caught. Lightweight fight between Chris Duncan and Yanal Ashmouz. I hope I pronounced that right. I have no idea. Chris Duncan, $8,400 this week. Both guys 1-0 in the UFC. Yanal Ashmouz, if you remember, fought Sam Patterson. Tons of people were on Patterson that week. 2 UFC debutants. And then Ashmouz comes out, finishes Patterson in the first 2 minutes, and lands himself on the optimal lineup at 7,200, scoring 101 points. So
I think there just might be no rules.
of course, I will be playing some of Ashmouz here. His stats, we have to throw him out. It's 1 minute of fighting in which he dominated. His last 5 strength of schedule leaves something to be desired, but it is pretty comparable with Chris Duncan's last 5 as well. Head, body, leg percentage from Chris Duncan is crazy. I mean, the least amount of strikes he landed in 15 minutes against Omar Morales were to the head, second most to the body, and the most overall were the leg kicks. So I would look out for that if I am Yanal Ashmouz. Controlled 99.5% of the grappling time over Omar Morales. That was an ass beating. 6.2 points a minute inside the distance, allowed just 1. I'm probably leaning Duncan, but I will be having both sides of this fight rostered just because Ashmouz, what if he does the same exact... I mean, we already saw the path to victory there, underestimating him. So I will definitely have more of him rostered than I did in his first UFC fight. But that said, I am a bit interested in Chris Duncan, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got exposed either. You know, the striking diversity has me interested, and I hope to see that kind of fight again, and I think it could be a barn burner for 15 minutes. So Ashmouz has that power. Duncan might have the longevity for the fight. I'm excited to see it, and I will have both sides rostered for sure. 84 and 7,800 are great prices, and it's very easy to get to either one of them this week. Next fight, lightweight fight, Mark Diakiese against Joel Alvarez here. 9K for Alvarez, getting outpaced everywhere. It's very ugly, especially inside the distance.
Damn!
In 3-round lightweight fights. I mean, his bonus points per win is 80, but he has no wins over 100. This is just like, who was it last week? Mayra Bueno Silva? One of them had a bunch of round 1 wins or a ton of bonus points per win and still had no fights over 100 points. That's exactly what we're seeing with Alvarez here. It is no volume, little to no volume as far as DraftKings scoring goes until he gets that early submission finish, which obviously is why we would be playing Alvarez at 9K, especially when Diakiese's been subbed twice in his pro career, once in his last 5. Mark Diakiese lost to Johnson, Alves, and Fiziev, beating Hadzovic and Slavaclaus. Joel Alvarez just came off that loss to Sarukian, and by just, I mean almost a year and a half ago, where he got absolutely demolished. Beat Moises, Yakovlev, Joe Duffy, and Danilo Bellawardo. Diakiese has some fantastic numbers. Actually, we didn't finish with Alvarez. 0% takedown defense, 2.5% grappling time overall.
Where's the rest? Yeah, where's the rest?
That's all the control time he has is 2.5%. One of his 2 wins was in the first round. That's about it. Diakiese, meanwhile, has some pretty good stats. I know Slavaclaus probably had a lot to do with that, with his 11 takedowns landed. Then he landed 8 against Hadzovic. So, and then none against Michael Johnson here. So I assume Joel Alvarez will get taken down a few times. Will Mark Diakiese be able to keep himself safe? That's the question. But Diakiese looks great inside the distance, scores over 100 points per win. 3 of his 7 wins over 100 points, controls 73% of the grappling time. Not a great strength of schedule at 66.5. Again, very diverse striker, 45% to the head, 29% to the body, and 26% to the legs. So I honestly think Diakiese has some decent potential value this week.
It doesn't matter what you think.
Especially at a low score of 7,200. Meanwhile, we're paying $9K for Joel Alvarez. Hasn't fought in a year and a half. I know about, his submission skills, blah, blah, blah. All that looked great against Moises. Diakiese will be tested here. He will have to keep himself safe. As I said, 2 submission losses in his pro career. But he's definitely going to be landing the takedowns for DraftKings scoring. He's definitely going to be racking up the control time as well. And I think he's going to be able to hold Joel Alvarez down. As long as he can avoid the big submission, he should just rack up points. And the longer this fight goes, the more points Diakiese will score on the ground. So I will be playing both sides of this one. Alvarez obviously more in GPPs. Well, both guys for GPPs, but Alvarez at 9K more for the finish is what I'm looking for. But the longer this fight goes, I think Diakiese will be able to score pretty well, especially inside the distance. Hopefully close to that 4.5 points per minute that he's been putting up on average in the lightweight division. So give me a fair share of Mark Diakiese as well at 7,200. Here we've got a good one at bantamweight. Davy Grant, never in a boring fight. 7,700 this week, taking on Daniel Marcos, making his second UFC walk on Saturday. $8,500 this week. Let's start with Marcos here. Looked great in his first UFC fight against Simon Oliveira, finishing him in the second round via KO TKO. I mean, scored almost 5 points a minute overall, allowed less than 2. At distance, it was 6 points a minute to 2, and inside the distance, almost doubled up his opponent. Scored 104 in that win, 70 bonus points, obviously over 100 per win, since he's only got 1 win there. 100% takedown defense, controlled just 30.77% of the grappling time. Strength of schedule in his last 5 leaves a lot to be desired at just 60.68. Very diverse striking in his first 7 minutes of UFC cage time. But man, that strength of schedule has got me shaking my head here. I'm still going to be playing a bunch of Marcos at 8,500 because I think the value is there. Davy Grant is basically impossible to KO TKO. Never happened in his pro career. Has been subbed 4 times, but Daniel Marcos has no professional subs in 14 wins, 8 of which are KO TKOs. So not really expecting a sub for Marcos. Would probably imagine this one goes all 3 rounds. The numbers for Grant are relatively pedestrian here, scoring less than 93 points per win, just 63% takedown defense. Only 1 of his 6 wins at the weight class, actually in his entire UFC career, has he scored over 100 points. Controls basically 50% of the grappling time, has a very good last 5 strength of schedule, 73.81. Losses to Yanez and Chito Vera. Wins over Jonathan Martinez, aging very well, Luis Smolka and Rafael Assunção. Head, body, leg percentage, very diverse, even more so, well, a little bit, I guess, over Marcos. Just 47% to the head, 34 to the body, and 19% leg kicks. So I, of course, love Davy Grant. Who doesn't love Davy Grant? I mean, if you can't cheer for this guy or like watching this guy's fights, I don't know what to tell you. You might want to check out a different sport here. This one's going to be a great fight, even if it goes to decision. I'm just nervous about how it may or may not score for DraftKings. If it goes to decision, like I said, Davy Grant scores almost 93 points a win, allows only 94 points per win. So at 8,500, 7,700, that might not be enough to get it done with 30 fighters on the card this week. All that said, I will be playing some of Marcos for that 6 points per minute at distance and, the 8 KOs. In his pro career. Will have some of Marcos at 8,500. I'll also have some of Grant in case he gives this guy a vet lesson and is able to get it done here at 7,700. One of the best salaries overall, but definitely one of the better underdog salaries to play. So,
Oh, is that so?
Yeah, that is so.
Again, give me both sides of this fight. I guess I'm going to pick Marcos. I'm going to be rooting for Grant. Nothing against Daniel Marcos. He is my pick. 7-year age gap has a lot to do with it. I love Davy Grant and will be rooting for him this week. Here we have fight number 9 in the heavyweight division.
You ordered Diet Coke, that's a joke, right?
Jamal Pogues taking on UFC newcomer Michael Mick Parkin.
From Salisbury, North Carolina, Michael Patrick Parkin.
He likes to be called Mick Parkin. That's not like McLovin, I don't think. I'm not for sure though. I don't know anything about the guy. He is 6-0 as a pro. He does have, oh, there's a message. He does have one Dana White Contender Series fight in which he did win over Eduardo Neves, 104.5 points, winning in the very first 2 minutes. I was going to say first round, but under 2 minutes there. Meanwhile, Jamal Pogues does have one UFC fight. It is against Josh Parisian, in which he went to a unanimous decision at 9K, scoring only 81 points that week. Obviously, did not make the optimal lineup here. Pogues, the scoring inside the distance is pretty good. 5.8 per minute, allowing just 1.13 against Parisian there. Head, body, leg percentages, basically a headhunter. Not basically, he is at 88%. 83% of the grappling time he controlled, which was almost half the fight. Very, very low ceiling, and that's just his original score from his first fight. To get ceiling and floor, you have to have standard deviation, meaning you have to have at least more than one fight, or else it's just that same number. So some okay numbers for Pogues, especially inside the distance. Meanwhile, Mick Parkin, 7,300 this week. I mean, looked great in his Dana White Contender Series fight. Unfortunately, we basically have to throw those stats out the window. He scored like 7.5 points a minute, almost 9 a minute scored back. I mean, these numbers are crazy. 73.5% of the grappling time he controlled. Got taken down twice, though, in under 2 minutes. That is probably the biggest stat on this entire sheet that you're looking at right here. 0% takedown defense, where Pogues, as we said, 5.8 points per minute inside the distance, controls 83% of the grappling time. Here's my favorite. You thought Pogues was a headhunter. All 7 of Mick Parkin's strikes landed to the head. No diversity at all for Mr. Parkin. Also, he has the worst strength of schedule I've seen in several months. Last 5, 37.89. Just absolutely abysmal, dreadful, horrible in every single way.
So sad. So sad. So sad.
So yeah, I'm going with Jamal Pogues here at 8,900. Probably finishes early, if not actually. I still like Pogues for the takedown and control time upside for sure. And if Parkin can control 74% of the grappling time, maybe he will be able to get up against Pogues, and we will see rinse and repeat takedowns a la Aylin Perez and Ashley Evans Smith. I mean, maybe Pogues will twerk afterwards too. I don't know. I have no idea. Unlikely. That's kind of how I'd like to see this one play out, and I will be picking Pogues to win, like him for DraftKings, and I just don't know about Parkin. I guess I'll have to play a little bit since he had that 2-minute finish. It was a sub, under 2 minutes, so very impressive. I'll play a little bit of him too.
It's Parkins by a mile.
Featherweight fight between the undefeated Lerone Murphy, 12-0 in his professional career, 1 draw against Zubi. His last 4 all wins over Santos, Makwan Amirkhani, Douglas Silva de Andrade, DSDA as he's called to some people.
Geddy Lee, best bass player ever. Come on.
And Ricardo Ramos there. 8,800 this week for Lerone Murphy. A couple of these fights that I just mentioned have been very close. In fact, all 3 of his last fights, according to the stats, he lost 2 of them. That can't be true. What is going on? He allowed 5 takedowns against Amirkhani, got controlled 78% of the fight, and then finished it with, was that the knee? I think that might have been the knee. I don't remember. Either way, not a great performance up to that point. Landed 4 strikes in, what is that, just over 5 minutes. Santos, according to the stats, he lost that fight. Split decision, but Lerone Murphy did get the win here. None of his stats are very impressive. His strength of schedule is very impressive at 78. Pretty diverse striker. 59% of the grappling time he controls, but just 43% takedown defense. He's getting outscored inside the distance, almost 2-1, and he scores only 82.5 points per win, guys. Let's see. Santos was 80, 82 against Amir Khani. DSDA was 60, and his only good score is against Hamosh at 106. So, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Murphy at 8,800. That seems like a lot to pay. And Culibao has looked very good recently. Losing to Turner, draw against Jourdain, but beat the Wolverine, Sungwoo Choi, excuse me, and then Melsik Bagdasaryan, who looked all right against, I believe it was at Tucker Lutz last weekend. Yeah, I like Culibao. I like what I've seen from him lately. Does not score well, just 70 points total per win overall. Has one of the lowest ceilings on the card at just 78. Outscores his opponent at distance 2-1. No wins out of 3 over 100. Controls just 25% of the grappling time. 81% takedown defense is one of the better numbers on his side of the stats. And also a very diverse striker as well. So he's going to have, let's see, 1-inch height advantage, same reach. He's 2 years younger than Murphy here. Man, does Culibao give Murphy his first L? I think it's possible. I really do think it's possible. I think this one goes to decision. I don't like it for DraftKings at all, but I will have some of the underdog rostered because he is so cheap at 7,400. If he wins and somehow scores 80 points, 85 would even be a stretch for Culibao, but still, I would take it in a heartbeat. I don't mind that at 74. Lerone Murphy, he just has not been performing well lately. I mean, he landed 6.2 strikes a minute against Santos, 1 takedown, but he's been taken down 11 times in his past 3 fights, 10 times in his past 2 fights, and out-controlled in both of those fights as well. So I don't like Murphy this week for DraftKings at all. In fact, I'm going to pick the underdog straight up, and I'm going to play him in DraftKings as well at 7,400. Jai Herbert taking on Faris Ziam in the lightweight division. Herbert just 7,500 this week, 76 strength of schedule, looking pretty good. Has wins over Kyle Nelson, Kama Worthy, losses to Renato Moicano, Ilia Topuria, and he drew against Ludovic Klein, a very close fight indeed. Majority decision draw. 87 points per win over Jai Herbert's 2 wins, 60 bonus points per win, which is a decently high number, which tells you he has not been scoring well outside of those finishes. 56% takedown defense is not a great number either, and inside the distance, he's getting outscored more than 2-1. 1.5 points, allowing 3.63. An okay ceiling at 110, so he's kind of all over the place with his scores, but on average, just 87 points per win. Not too impressive here. Faris Ziam, I think I'm probably going to pick him to win this fight, but he is abysmal for DraftKings. Just 2.27 points per minute, getting outscored overall. At distance, less than 2 points a minute, allowing just 1 point. Inside the distance, opponent scoring 3, he's scoring just 2. Only 70 points per win, guys, over his 3 UFC wins. Michael Figlak, he put up 96. Luigi Vendramini, he put up 46. And Jamie Malaki, 67.36. So outside of Figlak, in which that was a unanimous decision win, he has not scored well at all. Landed 3 takedowns in that fight against Michael and controlled 45% of the time. So overall, he's controlling just 31% of the time. 72 strength of schedule, and both these guys pretty diverse strikers, you know, focusing on the body for Herbert and the legs more for Faris Ziam. So I don't like this fight for DraftKings at all. I think it goes to decision more often than not. I like Ziam to win, even though Herbert is at home. So give me Faris for the win. Like I said, I don't like this one for DraftKings. I'm going to be looking for value elsewhere, and I will probably be fading this fight overall. Maybe I'll have a little bit of Herbert in case he does catch Ziam, because we all remember what happened to Topuria before Topuria decapitated Jai Herbert. By the way, those doctors did a great job after Herbert's head fell off.
Kim Kardashian's head fell off.
8,700 for Ziam is a bit steep. I don't really like his scoring output at all, so give me Herbert at 75 for DraftKings, GPP specifically, but give me Faris Ziam for the win, and we'll keep it moving. Middleweight fight between Andre Muniz against the debut at the weight class of my guy, Paul Craig. Paul Craig, 69 9,300 this week. Overall pacing, not great. And obviously, I just said it's his middleweight debut, so all the stats you're seeing are from Paul's UFC career. Overall, getting outpaced 2.5 to 3 points per minute. Even inside the distance, getting outpaced, but as you know, his fighting style is half take you down and then try to pull you down on top of him. It is very frustrating lately being a Paul Craig fan.
It does hurt, actually.
Especially in his last 2 fights against, who was it, Uzdemir and Johnny Walker. Yeah, that was pretty rough to see, being a Paul Craig fan. Either way, when he does win, guys, and that's what we're focused on for DraftKings, scores very well. 73.75 bonus points per win. I shouldn't say very well, just 95.5 per win. I scored 97 against Krylov, 103 against Hill, and 118 against Tua. So lately it's been better, but overall just 95.5 points. Either way, he's only 6,900 this week, so it does have potential to pay off. 3 of his 8 wins over 100 points. I think I just mentioned 2 of them. 50% takedown defense, controls just 26% of the grappling time, but then 72.5 strength of schedule, very good. 4 of his 8 UFC wins are round 1 wins. 4 of his UFC losses are round 1 losses. So definitely target Paul Craig fights. Andre Muniz, 9,300 this week, 71.5 strength of schedule. 3 of his 5 wins in the weight class, round 1 finishes. Most likely submission, yeah, all submission wins. 43% takedown defense, so both these guys love getting taken down. They want to work off their back, work off the ground in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter to them how they get there. Controls 60% of the grappling time, which is a far cry from Paul Craig's 26%. 66 bonus points per win. Again, a decent score when he does win. But that said, another 95 points per win, which is definitely not going to get it done at 9,300. Where that's an okay score for 6,900. Not great for 9,300. So I will be targeting this fight pretty heavily. I do not expect it to go to decision. I do expect there to be a submission, ground and pound finish from the Muniz side, but I really think this one probably ends via submission. Probably in the first round, early second. I will be rooting hard for my guy Paul Craig, but I'm probably picking Andre Muniz to win. I'm sorry, Paul. Yeah, I'll have you rostered in DraftKings though. Featherweight fight between Nathaniel Wood and Andre Fili. Andre Fili just 7K this week and lots of red on his side of things. His pacing is identical with his opponents at just over 3 points a minute. At distance, getting barely outpaced. Inside the distance, 4 points a minute to 3.25. Another very low DraftKings points per win score we have here at under 90, and he allows just 90 points when he loses here. 25% of his wins, 8 wins in the weight class. In fact, he has 16 3-round featherweight fights in the UFC. He is 8-8. 2 of those wins over 100. That's it. Just 45 bonus points per win. 71% takedown defense, which is pretty good. Anything over 70, I do like to see. A very good strength of schedule. Basically 77 over his last 5, which include wins over Bill Algeo and Charles Jourdain, losses to Bryce Mitchell and Joe Anderson Brito, and a no contest against Pineda back in 2021. 70% head strikes, right about the highest I would want to see it personally. Nathaniel Wood, much more diverse striker. In fact, 35% of his all significant strikes landed for Nathaniel are to the legs. 70 strength of schedule is pretty good. 74% takedown defense, controls 70% of the grappling time he's involved in. A bunch of 70s for Nathaniel Wood.
All right, all right, all right.
97, almost 98 DraftKings points per win inside the distance. Doubling up his opponents, 5.24 to 2.66. Overall scoring 4 points a minute to just 2.5 allowed. One of his 2 wins at the weight class has been triple digits, and he averages 45.83 bonus points per win. Fili has been touched up a couple of times here, getting KO'd by Brito. Unanimous decision by Bryce Mitchell, in which he got pretty much dominated. I like this fight.
I never met a fight I didn't like.
I'm favoring Nathaniel Wood in England. That is where my money's going to be. I like him for cash this week at 9,200. Maybe not so much for GPPs, although I could see a path in which he finishes Andre Fili for sure. But I probably think this one goes to decision more often than not. 30-27, 29-28 for Nathaniel Wood here. Fili, I guess I could see myself rostering him a bit, mainly because his strength of schedule is so good. Even so, I think Nathaniel Wood's a pretty good opponent, and I just don't think Fili is going to score well enough, even in a win, like a decision win, you know, anything short of a finish to make the optimal lineup, even at a low salary of $7K. So give me Nathaniel Wood. Maybe a slight amount of Andre Fili, but I'm going to have to see it from Fili. Even though he did look good against Bill Algeo, winning a split decision, the stats say he lost that fight, but just barely. Almost 4 strikes a minute, landed a takedown, controlled 29% of the fight. So definitely looked a lot better than he has in his last, couple of fights. That said, I still like Nathaniel Wood here at home, and I will be rostering him in cash for sure. Maybe a bit in GPPs in case he gets that finish. Co-main event of the evening, we've got Molly Meatball McCann taking on Julia Stoliarenko. Guys, is this fight even going to happen? I mean, Julia Stoliarenko passed out on the scale trying to make 135 pounds. She's missed weight at least once or twice. I think once was almost 138 or 139.5 pounds, something crazy like that. And now she's fighting Meatball at 125. Is there, what are the odds of this fight even happening? Like plus 1,600? If it does happen, I got the stats for you. It is at women's flyweight, like I mentioned. Meatball is $9,400, guys. $9,400. Is this like home field advantage type salaries or what? Because she looked awful against Blanchfield. 2 spinning back fists in a row before that, and lost to Laura Procopio in her 5th to last fight. I mean, overall, she scores 3.6 points a minute, pretty even with her opponents. She is outpacing her opponents at distance by almost a point. Inside the distance, allowing for 100 points per win. This is over 6 wins, so when Molly does win, I mean, Hannah Goldie, 111. Luana Carolina, 110. Ji-Young Kim, 92. So some decent scores here, and it better be decent at 9,400. She's going to need 110 again to pay that salary off. Maybe more with 29 other fighters on the card. 50% of her 6 wins, so 3 wins over 100. Average bonus points 42.5. Controls 30.5% of the grappling time. Has a terrible takedown defense of 44%. A decent strength of schedule at 70.5. Yeah, I don't know, man. Molly McCann at 9,400 seems crazy.
Hell no, to the no, 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 hell to the no.
But Julia Stoliarenko, I mean, if she makes weight, what is she going to look like at 125, man? This could be ridiculous. Molly McCann could come out here with all the energy in the world. Not sure where it all comes from, but, might be hanging out in the back with Patty or something.
I do cocaine!
You know, she comes out with all the energy in the world. She could put Stoliarenko down quickly. I would not be surprised. That said, if she doesn't, what's she going to look like in the later rounds? I'm not convinced this fight takes place, guys. 6,800. Stoliarenko's getting outpaced everywhere. Inside the distance, it's terrible. But overall, I mean, it's just bad. She's 1-5. 1-5 in the UFC. One of those wins was over 100. It would have been against Jessica Rose Clark. She got armbarred in less than a minute. Made the optimal lineup. Controls less than 13% of the grappling time. Terrible strength of schedule. Stoliarenko's not good, guys. I'm going with Molly McCann. I'm not happy about it. I don't even want to roster her on DraftKings. I probably don't mind her for cash, I guess. Although I would probably be looking elsewhere. At that point, I'll just pay up 300 and get some Aspinall, or I'll pay down to 9K. I forget who's down there. I like McCann, I guess. I'm going to pick her to win the fight. Not positive she scores well for DraftKings outside of the first round, but she has proven that she can do that and has done it before. So, fuck it. Give me McCann here. I'll have a little bit of Stoliarenko for the huge upset victory, but she's 1-5 in the UFC. I'm not expecting her to beat Molly McCann in Molly McCann's backyard. So a minimal rostering for me for Stoliarenko, and I will have a bit of McCann, even though I don't like it at 9,400. We did it, guys. Main event of the evening. Hit the like, hit the sub on this channel as we are inching closer and closer to 500 subs. I think we're 12 away. 12 subs away. 60% of you who are watching this are not subs, so be sure to hit that button for free. Helps me out a ton, and I really do appreciate it. Heavyweight fight, main event, Tommy Aspinall, baby. He is back. He's back after reconstructive knee surgery that he blew out against Curtis Blades in, I believe, the first, 30 seconds, maybe even less. Actually, first 15 seconds, it looks like, according to my stats. He's taking on Marcin Tybura. 24-7 as a pro, 11-6 in the UFC. And we are seeing these guys total UFC fights because neither one has been in too many 5-round fights, so I didn't have a ton of stats there. UFC fights is what you're seeing. Let's start with Tybura. Pretty pedestrian scoring, 3 points a minute, allowing 2. He's getting outpaced at distance. He is outpacing his opponents inside the distance 2-1. You love to see that. But over 11 UFC wins, guys, he is scoring 87.25 points per win. He put up 64 against Blagoy, 59 against Romanov, 111 against Harris, 99 against Hardy. So lately he has not been scoring well at all. And in fact, the only guys he's put up good points against haven't fought in the UFC for like 2-3 years. So I don't know how much, stock we can put into that still, especially when he is now closer to 38 than he was to 37. Only one of his wins, 9% of his wins, he put up over 100 points. That is the one to Walt Harris. The Greg Hardy one was really close, 99.8, as I said. 79% takedown defense, controls 67% of all grappling time he's involved in, 73.88 strength of schedule. For some reason, I didn't turn any of these stats colors. I must just have been in a hurry since it's the last fight. I must have said fuck it and wanted to be done.
I don't even want to be around anymore.
Pretty diverse striker, 66% of his significant strikes landed to the head, 19 to the body, and 15 to the leg. So outside of the DraftKings points per win for Tybura, which again was 87.25, he has some decent stats overall. Just one of his wins over 100, which you don't like to see. But other than the scoring, the glaring scoring stats there, I don't mind some of his overall stats. Tom Aspinall, most expensive fighter. Oh, that's the other thing. Tybura, cheapest fighter on the card at 6,500. Inherent value there. Tom Aspinall, 9,700. He's back. If that knee can hold up, I don't know what in the world could possibly stop him from not only looking good against Tybura in his return, but finishing Marcin at some point in the first or second round. That's what I'm looking for. It's going to be very difficult for me to not play Tom Aspinall in a ton of lineups this week at 9,700, but I promise I will do my best not to go overboard. Even with that loss in his last fight, which, only lasted 15 seconds, 6.35 points a minute, allowing basically 1. At distance, 3-1 over his opponents. Inside the distance, 10 points a minute to just a quarter of a point per minute. And he spends 32% of his total fight time fighting inside the distance. So it's not zero. Also, when he is inside the distance, he controls 99.65% of all grappling time he's involved in. 99%. 4 of his 5 wins in the UFC, over 100. 91 bonus points per win. Highest ceiling on the card. 110 point average per win. 100% takedown defense. 72 strength of schedule. 4 of his 5 wins ended in the first round. And his loss, obviously, ended in the first round as well. And very diverse striker. 65% to the head, 15 to the body, 20% to legs. Simply put, Tom Aspinall has the best stats on the card. Historically speaking. I mean, if I did put color on these numbers, which I should have, most 75% of them would have been green. There'd be no reds. There's nothing red to put on here at all. Not one stat. Overall, it's just fantastic. That said, he's beating guys, like Alan Badeau and then older Arlovsky, but he also beat Sergey Spivak in the first round. Somebody named Alexander Volkov in the first round. And I don't know how he was going to look against Blades. I was favoring him in that fight. I can't say if I would have been wrong or right. Obviously, it only lasted a short amount of time. But I love Tom Aspinall here. I'm looking for him to get this win over Marcin Tybura. And I'm looking for that crowd to go crazy when they raise this heavyweight's hand after hopefully just a couple of minutes. So give me Tom Aspinall. Huge return. Prove that the knee's okay. And I probably won't be getting to much Tybura this week. Maybe just a bit. Only because he's so cheap, but yeah, I love Tommy Aspinall this week. Let's throw it over to Monk, find out M.O.N.K's picks for UFC London.
Oh, fuck, a clown pewter? Fuck that, probably got no game.
Last week was another suboptimal performance for M.O.N.K. He went 6 out of 13 fights, 46%. Year-to-date, dipped under the 60% mark, and my personal picks have overtaken him. I have 173 correct picks out of 286 for a 60.5%. Suck on that, M.O.N.K. Here are his picks. These are all his picks. M.O.N.K. is a thing that I built in Excel that just picks fights based on stats, odds, and a ton of data points. He picks 5 dogs this week, guys. Filho losing to Daniel Barez by decision. He's got Bannon over Bruno Brazil by finish. Rough start for Bruno Brazil, according to M.O.N.K. Chris Duncan by finish. Kianzad underdog by decision. That's the first 3 out of 4 fights are dog picks here. Muradov over Barberena by finish. Pogues over Parkin by finish. Diakiese by decision. Danny Roberts by finish over Johnny by God Parsons. And that is the last underdog pick M.O.N.K. has. He's got Daniel Marcos finish, Lerone Murphy finish, Ziam finish, Muniz finish, Nathaniel Wood decision, Molly McCann finish, and Tom Aspinall by finish. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 finishes out of 15 fights M.O.N.K. has picked. That leaves only 4 decisions, guys. Hopefully we see an exciting card. 11 finishes would be absolutely insane. So those are M.O.N.K.'s picks this week. Before we get you out of here, let's throw to M.O.N.K. for the M.O.N.K. pick of the week, most owned no nonsense pick of the week, UFC London. The most owned no nonsense pick of the week, M.O.N.K. pick of the week is going to be Muniz, guys. And I thought long and hard about this. I couldn't give you Tom Aspinall at 9,700, the most expensive guy. I didn't feel great about Nathaniel Wood. Don't feel great about, let's see, Lerone Murphy. Daniel Marcos against Davey Grant could be a tough one. Joel Alvarez, I am not confident in. I didn't know who the hell to give you. It's going to have to be Muniz against my guy, Paul Craig. Unfortunately, I think Muniz is going to be able to get it done here inside the distance, and I think 9,300 could potentially look like some decent value here. So it pains me to say it. I'll be rooting for Paul Craig, but I'm going to have to pick his opponent this week for the most owned, no-nonsense pick of the week, specifically for GPP tournaments for UFC London. Let's get you on out of here.
No, I'm honestly done. I don't want to read anymore.
We did it, guys. All 15 fights. M.O.N.K.'s picks and the M.O.N.K. pick of the week this week. UFC London is an absolutely stacked card. Hopefully we don't lose. I mean, knock on something. I'm knocking on everything. Knock, 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 knock. Hopefully we do not lose any fights outside of maybe the Stoliarenko. How is she going to make weight? I have no idea. Anyways, guys, UFC London game theory in the books, all 15 fights. Hopefully I gave you the most pertinent DraftKings information so I can help you take down those GPP lineups, guys, for the last time. Hit the like if this helped you. Hit the sub on this channel as well as we inch closer to 500 subs, and share it with a friend who plays in different DraftKings contests as you. Only one thing left to do, guys. I hope all of you enjoy the fights. So, enjoy, and we will see you in the next one.
Only come here if you like that stuff.